Again, Daniel Merritt from illness last week, and also Dane Zorko were also among the changes coming back from suspension. That famous poke in the throat that Dane Zorko did to Phil Davis in that GWS practice match. And we've got North Melbourne replacing Jed Adamson. He got a bad hamstring injury, 8 to 12 weeks he'll be out for. And youngster Kane Turner comes into this game. North Melbourne, they did trail for 3 quarters against the Crows, but got the win in the end against them, and they'll be trying to make it 2 wins on the trot. They do need to travel up to Brisbane, where Brisbane have won the last 3 out of 4 at the Gabba against the Kangaroos. North Melbourne did win last year, but it was a milestone game, and I think it was Brent Harvey's milestone game that they got over the line. But Brisbane last week were very impressive with their attack play. They kicked 100 points against the West Coast Eagles, but they turned it over 10 plus times, just with simple mistakes that really cost them. West Coast Eagles in some plays they were just waltzing in and kicking goals, but if Brisbane still keep that game plan, I think they'll put it up to the Kangaroos, and the Kangaroos don't want to be trailing in the third quarter going into the last quarter by multiple goals against the Lions, because they'll come home strong and will have confidence that they can beat the Kangaroos. But I'm going to pick the Kangaroos just because they're a top 4, top 8 side, and Brisbane are still building with their young players. So North Melbourne for me against the Lions. Let's go to Game 5. It's St Kilda versus Western Bulldogs. St Kilda have named Paddy McCartan the first #1 draft pick for this clash. And as we know, the Western Bulldogs are going to go in unchanged. Western Bulldogs very impressive last week against the Dockers. They pretty much had the game won in around about 15 minutes in that first quarter. They have very fast play football. They've got the first 7 games at Etihad, but they probably don't want to do it too much because Etihad seems to be a hard surface, and by round 7, Western Bulldogs could be very, very sore if they just keep on playing that kamikaze run the gun football style. But I think they'll get over the line against Nick Riewoldt's team, and he's playing his 300th, so congratulations to Nick on your 300th. Hopefully you have a good game, and anything can happen in football, and St Kilda last year did come back against the Western Bulldogs, and they did win that game. So, but I'm picking the Western Bulldogs in this game just because they were very impressive last week. Top of the ladder after round 1, and they pretty much deserve it with the style that they've got going at the moment. So Western Bulldogs for me against the Saints. Let's go to game 6. It is Fremantle versus Gold Coast Suns playing on Saturday night. Fremantle have made 4 changes after a big loss to the Western Bulldogs, with John Griffin, Mzungu, Matt Taberner and Zach Clark, who is also out with an injury. The other 3 were omitted. To replace those guys, Aaron Sandlin's coming back from suspension, Michael Johnson coming back from injury, Ed Langdon and Alex Pearce. The 4 changes for the Fremantle side. On the other hand, Gold Coast, they will bring in Cade Colin-Jasnia after missing last week with illness. Gold Coast last week, it's very hard to read Gold Coast. They did play the Bombers. It was basically a free hit. They won by 10 goals. Gary Ablett got 34 touches. I think around about 3 goals as well. So he was in fine form after not having a game under his belt in the pre-season. Fremantle, they need to bounce back after a stinging loss against the Western Bulldogs. I think they will at home, and I think Nat Fyfe hopefully will be back to his best. As we know, it's very exciting when he's playing good football, and hopefully Nat Fyfe and Gary Ablett go head to head, because that could be a good game to see and watch that matchup. So I think Fremantle will get over the line against the Gold Coast Suns. Let's go to game 7. It is GWS Giants versus the Geelong Cats. GWS Giants have named a former number 1 draft pick in their side, with John Patton among the extended bench, because this game is played on Sunday, while Geelong have got an extended bench from their side who played on Monday. These 2 sides, last year I remember that GWS Giants got up for the game against Hawthorn and won that game. Jeremy Cameron is not playing in this game, and with him in the side, it would be a lot stronger. But Stevie J is going to be ready for this match against his old side. If he plays his cards right and gives the young'uns some ball, it could be that the Giants get over the line against the Cats. The Cats did get up for the Hawthorn game, but in the end, the Hawthorn were depleted. In the end, Luke Hodge had a broken arm and no rough head, Shields. But Geelong had a day out. Dangerfield with 43. Could have got multiple goals, but missed a few in front. I'm going for the Geelong Cats due to the fact that the Giants have still got some big outs. The key forward in Jeremy Cameron and Patrick Dangerfield and Joel Selwood did work well together with Zach Smith in the ruck, and I think the Cats will just get over the line against the Giants. Let's go to game 8. It is Hawthorn versus West Coast. Hawthorn loses their captain Luke Hodge with a fractured arm, while the new West Coast recruit Lewis Jetta comes in for his first game in his new colours. So a little bit of speed on the wing. Hawthorn are going to be tested with their depth. I think that West Coast, being a rematch of the grand final, I think West Coast will get their revenge. But if you look at the Hawthorn side, there's a few missing from that grand final side, and if it's going to be a free hit for West Coast, it's going to be this week against the Hawks. So I think West Coast with Josh Kennedy up forward, kicking 8 goals last week against the Lions, I think he'll continue on, and potentially he could be the next player to kick 100 goals if he continues on his way. So I think West Coast for me against the Hawthorn Hawks on Sunday at the G. Let's go to the last game of the round. It's Carlton versus Sydney Swans. Dale Thomas returns after suspension in the pre-season. So he's going to be on the extended bench for Carlton, and Ted Richards is back for the Sydney Swans. Sydney last week, as we all know, we would have watched it. They beat Collingwood by 80 points. They had some good young players debut last week, and got the job done against the Magpies that were probably not trying hard enough to make it a contest. Sydney with Lance Franklin back to his best, and the midfield for Sydney, they'll definitely get over the line against the Carlton Blues. The young Blues that nearly got over the line against the Tigers, but Sydney coming down with experience will get the job done against the Blues that potentially could be wooden spooners or second last again this year. That's it for me, and I'll see you next time, hopefully in the next new studio for Ash Footy TV.